say that NSHM Centre for Language and Communication successfully organized a national conference on emerging trends in teaching language and literature in the millennial classroom to foster effective communication. Today is the final day of our conference where our distinguished panelists will engage in a panel discussion focusing on the emerging trends in teaching language and literature to the millennials. Now I would like to call on stage Dr. Saujanya Puri, Dr. Vishnu Sarkar, and all the other panelists to please light up the lamp.
Ma'am, please face this side and
Thank you so much, everyone. Now I would like to call Dr. Saujanya Puri, the Professor and Head of Center for Language and Communication, to give the convener's note.
Good morning and a warm welcome to all the delegates seated here and all the students, fellow participants, researchers, and teachers who are joining us both offline and online today. It's the immense pleasure to share with you that we had planned a 3-day national conference wherein we had 2 days in Durgapur campus and 1 day in Kolkata campus. We had around 102 participants papers, which was which we had received from across the country, and we had around 62 participants presenting papers, both online and offline. Well, the topic which we thought of was emerging trends in using language and literature in the millennial classroom to foster effective communication. We stand at crossroads today to understand how important is just not having a proper degree, but how do you communicate about the knowledge you have? Well, as we have been dealing with the post-pandemic classrooms and also dealing with the millennial students, we understand that there's a lot of learning and unlearning which has to happen both in the perspective of the teachers and also from the participant side. The best way to go ahead with it is to contemplate, to debate, discuss, and get ideas from everyone. And this was the reason why we went ahead with a conference like this. And we're very happy to tell you that we had some really insightful discussions in the panel discussion which took place in the report and the paper presentations. Today, we have amongst us distinguished panel representing the media, representing the academic industry, representing the schools we have a direct interface with the students, and also someone who's been in the academics for more than 50 years, and other someone who's been here for more than 30 years. So we have a span of people who have seen various patches. So that brings it to uh, for all of us to understand how best we could make the most of it. So this conference, we look forward to having it every year. And we thank everyone who's joining us both online and offline. And today, we have the panel discussions with these esteemed guests who would actually throw light on how to engage the millennials in the classroom and how we could actually use language and literature. Because most of the time, if you're looking at employability skills, the class will go really boring if you're just going ahead with a normal teaching, right? There's a lot of literature when you say both of the social media or across, a lot of literature which is always available. How do you make best of it? So we have Dr. Mangai, who's completely into curriculum development. We have my professor Renan Patel, who's been, you know, in the industry of the education and the training and development the last 50 years or so, and trying to always ensure that a lot of training programs are organized for various teachers. We have with us Mr. Partha Singh, who's a translator of our books, and Dr. Ananya Saha from Xavier's University. And we have with us Sunita, Sunita Singh, the principal of Baligan Shiksha School, and then we have Professor Krishnendu Sarkar. So looking forward to some insightful discussions, and thank you all once again. Thank you, ma'am, for always motivating and guiding us. Now I would like to request Dr. Krishnendu Sarkar to felicitate Dr. Zaidan Patil. We request Dr. Saujanya Puri to felicitate Dr. Manga. I would request her to felicitate Mr. Sunita Sen as well. I would request ma'am to felicitate Dr. Ananya Saha. I would request Dr. Krishnendu Sarkar to felicitate Dr. Partha Proti as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Now, moving on to the keynote address, I would request Professor Zaidan Patil to please give the keynote address. Professor Zaidan Patil is a retired professor of English and the head of the Department of Training and Development, EFLO, Hyderabad. He is also the president of NSHM Pune chapter. So please.
Morning, and indeed very happy to be with you this morning and bring the together about half an hour or so. Our time is limited and therefore we can't cover all the points. So let me begin with a very simple question. Do you, and when I say you, do we really want to be good speakers of English language? Do we want to be good communicators and presenters in the English language? Yes, all of us want to be good speakers of the English language. And when I say the English language, I mean listening, speaking, reading, writing, grammar, vocabulary, etc., etc. Now, today I'm going to focus. In fact, I would prefer not to use the microphone. So all of us want to be good speakers of the English language, and all of us want to master the language skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing. All of us want to strengthen our vocabulary, enrich our vocabulary, and strengthen our grammar, and so on and so forth. Today, I'd like to focus our attention on just one skill, and that skill is listening skill. Now, we think we know everything about listening, but in fact, we don't know many things that are associated with the listening skill. Now, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you an anecdote. Once upon a time, there was a young man. Once upon a time, there was a young man. About 22 years ago, he was born in a village. He was born in a poor family. His parents were poor. A year ago, he got married, but he got married in another poor family. So his parents were poor, his mother was poor, his father was poor, and his mother-in-law was poor too. So one fine day, this young man decided to go and visit his mother-in-law. He went to his mother and he said to her, "Mother, I want to go and meet my mother-in-law. She's alone, she's a widow. She lost her husband, that is my father-in-law, a couple of years ago. And my wife, that is your daughter-in-law, is the only daughter, the only child she has. She doesn't have another daughter. She doesn't have a son. So she's alone. She lives alone in the village. I'm sure she is very lonely." So the mother said, "All right, my son, you can go and meet your mother-in-law in the village. But listen to my advice. I have some two pieces of advice for you. Number one, don't sit on a low place. You are a son-in-law and you are a brand new son-in-law. You got married recently. So listen to my advice. Don't sit on a low place. Son-in-law in our culture is a very important person, at least for the first 1 or 2 years. And after a couple of years, when baby is born into the family, the center of gravity, the center of attention moves from the son-in-law to the baby. The son-in-law feels marginalized, but you are still a very important person. Listen to my first piece of advice. That first piece of advice is don't sit on a low place. You are a son-in-law. All right, mom. I will not sit on a low place. I'm a son-in-law and I'm going to meet my mother-in-law who is not very far from our village. Number two, my son. Use weighty words. Don't use simple words like Mr. Patil does. Even today in our country, people think that difficult English, ununderstandable English, unintelligible English, undecipherable English is standard English. Let me tell you one or two anecdotes. Once one of my friends lost his mother, and I sent him a condolence message. My condolence message was written in very plain, simple, living needs. He responded like this. Well, ZN, because my friends call me ZN, my initials are ZN. Well, ZN, I left no stone unturned, but as bad luck would have it, the hand that rocked my cradle kicked her bucket 3 days ago. I said to myself, this man has lost his mother, he has also lost his sense of language. Why does he think that difficult English, diplomatic English is the only quality in English? Right. Once I was traveling by bus from Pune to Mumbai, and a gentleman was sitting next to me. He was a snuff addict, you know, snuff. Yeah. And he had left his snuff box at home, and there was another passenger sitting on the other side of the bus, but he was carrying his snuff box. When this man saw the snuff box, he said to the other gentleman, "Excuse me, would you mind if I inserted my digital extremities into your concavity and allow me to take a pinch of pulverized tobacco?" Now, people think, they use Shakespeare, they use Johnson, they use Pope, they use, John Donne, and all kinds of poets and story writers and playwrights, etc. And they think that when they use difficult English, they use quotations, difficult quotations, people will be, amazed. But let's remember that simple English, easy English is living English. In fact, one British author says it's very difficult to be easy, it's very easy to be difficult. You go to your class with a book and you are not prepared, you ask them to read the lesson or you read the lesson to them and you try to explain the meaning of the poem or essay or story or whatever you're dealing with. So let's go back to the story. So the mother had given him two pieces of advice. What was the first one? Don't sit on a low place. You are a son-in-law, a VIP, very important person. VIP has two meanings: very important person and very idiotic person. So the son-in-law in the beginning, in the first 1 or 2 years, is a very important person, but after a couple of years, he becomes a very idiotic person. Right? So the second piece of advice that the mother gave him was use weighty words. Don't use easy English or easy language, Hindi or whatever language. Use weighty words. This man started from his village at 8:30 in the morning, and his mother-in-law's village was not very far from his own village. So by 10:30 or so, he was in his mother-in-law's village. And the mother-in-law saw him, and when she saw him, she was elated, delighted, because he was the only relative she had, and she was extremely happy. The poor lady had no furniture. She didn't have a chair, she didn't have a table, she didn't even have teapot. She didn't even have a bed. She used to sleep on the floor on a mat, on a bamboo mat. So when she saw the son-in-law, she was extremely happy. And she welcomed him and she said to him, "Please come inside." Right? So most welcome. So this the son-in-law saw that there was no furniture, there was no chair, there was no table, there was no bed. Mother-in-law spread a mat on the floor and requested the son-in-law to be comfortable on the mat. He remembered the first piece of advice that was given to him by his mother. My mother-in-law asked me not to sit on the floor, because I must be to the low place. He said to himself, he said to his mother-in-law, "I'm sorry, I can't sit here. I'm a son-in-law, and a son-in-law in Indian culture is a very important person. I can't sit here. It's a low place." Mother-in-law missed the heart, didn't know what to do and what not to do, what to say and what not to say. After a minute or two, he saw a haystack right in front of him, a heap of dry grass. And he said to himself, isn't that a high place? My mom has asked me to sit on a high place, not to sit on a low place. Now, please listen to this story with attention because I'm going to draw a conclusion. The conclusion is very, very important with reference to from the point of view of the importance of listening. Right? So he saw the haystack, and the moment he saw the haystack, he rushed out of the house and climbed up the haystack and sat on the top of the haystack like a yogi. I come from a tiny village in Jalgaon district. In my village, even today, there is no English. I think it's quite appropriate that we're talking about recent trends like education. Here is an example. So we need to be quick. It's okay. So, the son-in-law sat on top of the haystack. The mother-in-law got out of the house. He missed the heartbeat again. And she said, why don't you come down, climb down and sit inside the house and be comfortable? People are gathering around the haystack. It's a village. As I said, I come from a small village in Jalgaon district in Maharashtra. And I never studied in an English medium school. All my education was carried out in Marathi medium. The language of instruction was Marathi. So in that village, there was no English. And people, people who come from villages have a lot of time at their disposal, right? They gossip and they chat. So all those people who were there in the village, they gathered around the haystack and began to whisper. This man got married a year ago. He was okay. The problem is, why is he sitting there on top of the haystack? People began to whisper. So the mother-in-law, though she was very poor, she was a very respected person. And she came out and she requested the son-in-law to be comfortable inside the house. And he said, hammer, hammer. The mother-in-law said, why is this man talking about hammer? Is he going to beat my lovely doll with a hammer? Is he going to be a white beater? So she repeated the request again. She repeated the request the second time. And he said, axe, axe. And goodness, why is he talking about hammers and axes? And then she repeated the request a third time, and he said, grinding stone. Unfortunately, all those grinding stones have disappeared, like many other beautiful instruments and implements, so on and so forth. I remember the days when I was a small boy, school-going boy. I used to sleep in the lap of my mother. My mother used to grind a stone to our right. So, why do you think he was sitting on top of the hill? He, but I mean, his mother had given him two pieces of advice. Don't sit on a low place. That means sit on a high place. And he was doing that. He was acting upon the advice given to him by his mother. And the second piece of advice that the mother had given him was use weighty words. So he was sitting on a high place and he was using very heavy words. He thought because a hammer is a heavy object and the word also becomes heavy. He thought an axe is heavy, so the word axe also gets that weight. And he thought the grinding stone was the heaviest of the three, and therefore word grinding stone also became very heavy. Right? So do you think he was a good listener? Why not? Why do you think that he was a poor listener? We're talking about listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and we want to spend our time today on the importance of on the process of listening skills. So why do you think that he wasn't a good person? He wasn't a good listener. He was a poor listener. He was acting upon his mother's advice. Okay, so what kind of meaning did he understand? I always make a distinction. Very good. I always make a distinction between literal meaning and implied meaning. Right? In Sanskrit poetry, we have words like Lakshana, Abhida, Lakshana, Vyanjana. So he was talking about Lakshana, not about he was talking about Abhida, not Lakshana and Vyanjana. That is, he understood the dictionary meaning, the literal meaning of the words that were spoken by his mother. Right? The meanings were different from the messages. What was the message of the first piece of advice that was given to him by his mother? What was the message? Don't sit on a low place. What do you think was the meaning, was the message? Don't sit on a low place. We know the literal meaning, but what do you think is the message? Okay, so mind your behavior, mind your conduct. You're going to your mother-in-law place. She's a poor lady, I know that, but she's a very highly respected and respectable person. So don't misbehave with your mother-in-law, right? You are a son-in-law, but then don't misbehave with her. Don't, I mean, mind your conduct. That was the message. But he understood only the literal meaning of the advice. Don't sit on a low place, and therefore he was sitting on top of the haystack. He did not understand the message, the implied meaning. The second message was use weighty words. He understood only the dictionary meaning, but what was the message that the mother wanted to convey to him? Mind your language. Mind your language. Language is a vehicle. Language is a tool. Language is an instrument. And you can use this instrument to make friends, or you can use it, misuse it. And when you misuse it, people run away from you. Nobody wants to talk to you because your language is exclusive language. Your language is dotted with I and me and my and mine. That is exclusive language, because when you say I and me and my and mine, you are excluding your listener. So some people always say we. Let us talk about this. Let's try to understand the topic from a different perspective, etc. So all of us now agree that he was a very poor listener. He wasn't a very good listener. Let me give you another example. And this example is from King Lear, Shakespeare's play King Lear. Now, the king has three daughters. Do you know the names of the daughters? Let's tell me. Very good. Regan, Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. Now, Cordelia is the daughter who really, sincerely loves her father, King Lear. And the other two daughters, Goneril and Regan, they don't really love him, right? But one fine day, this man decides to test how much the daughters love him. She calls them and she said, Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia, today I want to administer a test. He doesn't use the word administer. So I want to administer a test. And the test is very simple. You need to describe your love for me. I'm your dad, I'm your father. So the first two daughters describe their fake love, right? Their love is fake love. They don't really genuinely, sincerely love the father. But they use beautiful language, flowery language, right? Ornamental, ornate language. And the king is impressed. Then he finally invites the youngest daughter, Cordelia. She says, "Not my dad, I'm your daughter. That's all. My sister says that she will divide her love between her husband and you. You are the father, and she is married. When she is married, she will divide her love between the two. My love cannot be divided, not indivisible. You are my father, and I owe certain duties to you. But this king gets furious. He gets flared up, and he says, nothing. Nothing will come out of nothing. He gets very angry, and ultimately what he does is something very shocking. He divides the kingdom between the two daughters, the first daughter and the second daughter, and he leaves no property for the youngest daughter who really sincerely loves. When we listen, do we listen to words alone, or do we listen to something more than that? Because we know that मुंह में राम and बगल में सूरी. So when we listen to people around us, the people can be neighbors, colleagues, and bosses. So when we listen to what they say, we listen to words, yes, of course, but we listen to something more. We listen to silences, we listen to body language, we listen to tone of voice, we listen to a whole bunch of factors that are associated with the listening skill, right? So do you think King Lear was a good listener? He was a king, but he was a very poor listener, right? Now, when we talk about assessment, we talk about summative and formative. Summative assessment refers to assessment that is done at the end of the semester or at the end of the year. Formative assessment is an ongoing process. It's done on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, month-to-month basis, and it's not administered only towards the end of the session or towards the end of the term of the year. Now, I always give examples like this. Like, for example, Desdemona and Othello, another play, Othello is another play by Shakespeare. Othello married this lady, Desdemona, and she was absolutely faithful to the husband, right? And he experiences her faithfulness on a day-to-day basis. But then there comes the villain, Iago. He has not been promoted, somebody else has been promoted, and he wants to take revenge. Naturally, he cannot take revenge on that person, so he takes revenge on the other person. Now, how can we relate this? We talk about making use of literature in order to enhance our communication skills, in order to talk about theory and so on and so forth. Now, summative assessment is like arranged math. And the two families come together. The boy and the girl come together. The boy asks some questions to the girl asks some questions to the boy, and they decide to get married or not to get married. This is summative. Only one meeting, only one discussion, only one gathering, and things are decided either this way or that. This is summative. Formative assessment is the boy and the girl keep meeting over months, sometimes over a couple of years, and then they understand the temperament, the disposition, the nature of each other, or each other's nature and disposition and temperament, and then decide to marry or not to marry each other. Right? Now, this man, Othello, had experienced the faithfulness, the fidelity of his wife for months. But he doesn't use that experience. Instead, he uses stories concocted or made up by the villain, Iago. Right? So if you're talking about continuous assessment, you can always think of King Lear and Othello, that they don't believe in continuous assessment. They don't believe in the formative assessment. They are examples of summative assessment. The same thing can be said about King Lear. Right? So listening, I can go on and on and on talking about listening. Maybe 1 week we can have a 1 week long workshop on listening skills. Another week, another workshop, week long workshop on speaking skills. Let me say a few things about speaking, then I'll stop. 5 minutes? Okay. Now, as I said right at the outset, all of us want to be good speakers of the English language. Then we need to master certain ingredients, certain features, certain characteristics, certain qualities of spoken English, spoken language. Any language for that matter. We're talking about English. Now, what do you think are the important aspects? Some of the important aspects, again, there are hundreds of things that can be said about spoken English. But let's highlight those qualities which are very, very prominent, very important. Like, for example, accent. Accent is very important. Now, my accent is neither British nor Australian nor American, it's Indian. But everyone can understand what I'm saying easily. Right? I've yet to come across a person, I've yet to come across my listener who says, "Excuse me, sir, I didn't get you. Excuse me, Mr. Padil, what did you say?" People ask these things, people ask these questions only when they can't understand what the speaker is saying. So one important aspect of quality of spoken English is accent. And even within, I'm not advocating the use of British variety or American variety or Australian variety. I'm advocating the use of standard Indian variety of English. Neither necessary nor desirable for us to speak like those people speak in America or Britain or Australia. Right? What is important is intelligibility. We don't have to be absolutely intelligible. We're talking about comfortable intelligibility. Like the British people say, my idea is. You can cite other examples also. My idea is. Now there is no r here, but they insert the r sound because the earlier word ends in a vowel and the later word or the latter word ends in a or begins with a vowel. My idea, right? It's a diphthong. We call it diphthong in technical language. So idea ends with a diphthong and is begins with a vowel. A diphthong is of course a vowel, right? Belongs to vowel category. So when there are two vowels coming one after the other, they insert a r sound. My idea is becomes my idea is. That do we need to copy them like this for this? No, we don't need to. We don't have to say my idea is. Like for example, they say cat as cat or foot as foot and take as take. We don't have to aid them. We don't have to emulate them, aid them like this blindly. Doesn't matter whether it's a take or take. Doesn't matter whether it's a foot or foot, because the meaning doesn't change. In Hindi, there are two different phonemes. For example, ka and kha, right? They are not allophones. They are not variants of the same phoneme. They are two different phonemes, two different sounds. So, kana has one meaning, but khana has another meaning. Kana means squint. Squint eye, like this. So, kana is squint and khana means meat. There we have to be very careful. If you say, kana ho gaya, then, then there is a problem. There is communication problem. But when you're saying, for example, are you going to take the test? Are you going to take the test? Then meanings are not different. What I'm saying is accent is important. And we have so many varieties of accents in our country. For example, I gave some examples in Durgapur, right? I was in Kashmir for a week several years ago during the turbulent time. So I was in a teacher training class and I said, and some of my trainees said to me, Professor Patil, I don't have the thickest text becomes thickest because they can't articulate consonant clusters together. Text. So the last three consonants are text. So, and so. And if it's a plural, then there are four. Text. They can't, they find it very difficult to articulate consonant clusters. So text becomes thickest. Next becomes next. Fixed becomes thickest. And so on and so on. The meeting has been thickest, the next the week. Right? Now, initially, you may not understand, but then after a minute or two, you realize that there is a pattern, there is a method in the madness, and you can make sense of what the other person is trying to say to you. Maybe somebody's phone is ringing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So pronunciation is important. Right? I was in Vietnam, and the Ministry of External Affairs of our country sent me to develop spoken communication skills of future diplomats. My students came from Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, Romania, and a couple of other countries. So I didn't know, I was not familiar with Vietnamese variety of English. Vietnamese tend to delete the last consonant. Like, for example, white becomes wine. Wine also becomes wine. Right? Wife also becomes wine. So, if you take the word in isolation, you don't know whether the person is talking about wife or wine or white. Right? Because all these words are articulated in the same fashion. Wine. So, one day one of my students was going somewhere in the evening and I asked him, hi John, where are you going? name is John. He said, Daddy, many of my students used to call me Daddy, and even now we are in contact with each other. Daddy, I'm going to die with my girlfriend. Would you like to join us? So die means dine. We are going to have dinner together. Would you like to join us? So dine becomes die and join becomes join. So Vietnamese variety. We have so many varieties, we don't have enough time to write illustrations of examples from different varieties. So I just gave you one example of Indian variety, that is Kashmiri English. The other day, I gave some more examples, and I would like to repeat one or two of them. I was in Odisha, and gentleman who had invited me to interact with his postgraduate students got up and introduced me. And he said, well, my dear friend, we are very lucky. We have an important person here. So important. Please remember, accent, what I mean by accent is strength. Word strength and accent strength. For example, you can say professor. Nobody says professor or professor. All of us know that the accent falls on the second part, the second syllable. Professor, professor, photograph, photography, photograph, first part, photography, second part, photographical, third part. So the accent, word accent changes from here to there. There are certain words which are used as nouns and verbs and adjectives, and their accent also moves. For example, the present principle presented a present to me. The present, is it a noun or a verb or adjective? The present principle, not the past principle. Which word class is it? The present principle. Is it a verb or a noun or an adjective? Yeah? It's an adjective, right? The present principle presented, presented the verb. A present to me. So when the word present is used as a noun, it is pronounced as present. When it is used as an adjective, again it is pronounced as present. When it is used as a verb, it is articulated as present. There are about 60, 70, 80 words which display this kind of movement as far as space is concerned. So, word space is important. Sentence space also is important. For example, you were not there yesterday. I said to something that you were not there yesterday. I was there. Usually, helping verbs, articles, prepositions are weakened. So we don't usually say was. We say I was. We were. We were there. I was there. He was there. So was becomes was. Where becomes were. So I say to her, for example, you were not there yesterday, and she wants to erase my opinion or my observation. She wants to argue. She said, I was there. Patil, I was there. Right? For contrast. Suppose I say, Nirav Modi is the Prime Minister of India. Nirav Modi is the Prime Minister of India. Immediately you will say, no, 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 no. Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India. So the contrast between Nirav and Narendra. So you highlight that particular word. So this is called sentence stress. There is something called word stress, something called sentence stress. So stress is important, intonation is important. When you ask a yes no question, our voice goes up. When we ask a WH question, our voice comes down. When we make a request, our voice rises or goes up. And when we issue an order, our voice falls. So intonation is important. Accent is stress is important, intonation is important, pauses are important. Can you give me an example of how pauses are important? Tell me from Hindi. How pauses is significant in communication. Yeah, punctuation, you talk about punctuation when you talk about writing. Talking about spoken English. So when we speak, we take pauses.
For example, if there is a site where work is going on, and if it is written danger, men at work. So if I say with a pause, it becomes danger, men at work. But if I don't pause and say danger, men at work.
Very good. For example, uh, the principal said, the teacher is retiring. The principal said, pause. The principal said, pause. The teacher is retiring. Only one pause. The principal said the teacher is retiring. The principal said the teacher is retiring. Who is retiring? The teacher. Why do you interpret it like this? Because there is only one pause and that pause comes after the word said. The principal said the teacher is retiring. There are only two groups. Principal said is the first group, the teacher is retiring is the second group. There is only one pause. Suppose I add a pause, right? And I change the location or placement of the pause, the meaning will change. The principal said the teacher, who is the speaker here? The principal said the teacher, here the teacher is the speaker. And who is retiring? The principal pause said the teacher pause is retiring. The principal is retiring. This is what I mean by significance of pause. Pauses can bring about change in the utterance, change in the meaning of the utterance. So intonation is important, word stress is important, sentence stress is important, and pauses are important. When we speak, we need to, now I'm speaking on a formal occasion. If I am in conversation with you, I would like to use, intermittently use question tag. For example, you're going to Pune, you're going back to Pune tomorrow, aren't you? You're going back to Pune tomorrow, aren't you? So occasional use of, very wide use of question tag makes our spoken English living, right? Otherwise it becomes monotonous. And if you speak on a monotone, people will doze off within 5 minutes. Or they will start drawing your cartoon on a piece of paper, right? So, there are, for example, I went to the market. I is a pronoun, went is a verb, to is a preposition, the is an article, market is a noun. So only two words are important, went and market. And in market, only the first part is important because we don't say market. Of course, there are people who say ale, ale, age, package, luggage, baggage. But we say luggage, packing, pocket, market. So only two words are important here. One is the verb, when. So how do you, if you want to you can do it like noun, noun, verb, information carrying word. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs are information carrying words. Like for example, you have a train, you have the first coach, the second coach, the third coach, the fourth coach, you have several coaches, several compartments. Between those two compartments, what do you see? There are buffers. There are buffers. So helping verbs, conjunctions, articles are buffers. And noun, verbs, adjectives, adverbs are the main coaches. Main coaches are important. They carry people, passengers. Similarly, main words like noun, verbs, adjectives, adverbs are important because they carry major portion of information. Question tags are important. Uh, of course, contracted forms are important. When we speak, we don't say, I cannot, I cannot cook. We say, I can't cook. I can't. So, can't, mustn't, won't, shan't, doesn't, Hasn't. Haven't. When we speak, we use usually. I'm talking about usual practice. Usually we use present as contracted form or contraction. Right? So there are so many things that we would like to cover today, but since our time is limited and we're going to have a panel discussion, and we have a galaxy of experienced and wise teachers of English or trainers of English, and we need to listen to them. And moving forward, oh, can you give me a list of names?
Thank you, sir, for the engaging discussion. Without any further ado, we would like to start the panel discussion. Before the panel discussion, I will introduce the panelists. We have with us Dr. Manga. She is Associate Professor of English at ELTAI College for Women, Chennai. She is the National Office Bearer of ELTAI. We have Dr. Ananya Saha, who has completed her Master's and PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University. She is an Assistant Professor at the Department of English, St. Xavier's University, Kolkata, and she is also my research PhD guide. Mr. Parthapratim Das is a state-aided college teacher at Damdam Motichil College. He is the first to translate Ruskin Bond's The Season of Ghosts and A Face in the Dark and The Room on the Roof to Bengali. And finally, we have Ms. Sunita Sen, who is the principal of the BSS school. Thank you all for coming here. And I would request that Mr. Patil sir to be the moderator of the panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. So good morning, friends. Today we're going to have a panel discussion right now, and the key words in the panel discussion are going to be language, literature, and communication. So I request my panelists to choose or select any particular aspect of spoken communication skills, all language, all literature, and discuss that particular aspect. Then we can have questions and answers towards the end. Hopefully. Yeah. So now I request the first panelist, Saji, to say whatever she wants to say about the topic, about the aspect of spoken communication, all language or literature that she wants to highlight.
Thank you so much, sir. In fact, Professor Patil has set the stage for all of us. And it's been such an enlightening talk that we have all been listening to. And there was so much of learning. There was so much of learning. Now, I have been handling this field of education for the little ones up to class 12. So I am going to actually speak about making English the lingua franca, which is, so as to say, the language of communication, and how you can actually bring it to your daily lives. We get the children when they are 3+ in school. And when they are 3+, obviously, when I stand at the gate, the first few words that we get to hear from them, the tiny toddlers experiencing school for the first time. Good morning, ma'am. Way of greeting. Now, we cannot expect the little one to speak in English just because we are an English medium school. Because mother tongue will interfere into their communication, and it is bound to. Now, the most important thing that the teachers need to encourage is get out of your self-consciousness. And that pertains to even young adults who are in the college. Remember, boys and girls who are here, if you have to learn a language, you have to first make the language your friend. And unless and until you are able to do that, just like you've learned your mother tongue because you've heard your father speaking it, you've heard your mother speaking it, you've heard your known one speaking it, and it comes to you very naturally. Similarly, you have to start thinking in the language that you want to learn. You have to expose yourself into a certain environment where you are constantly hearing that language so that you can adapt to the learning and communication in that language. And you have to start reading. Now, reading is a very complex procedure. Why? Because unless and until you are actually what Sir was talking about, the four skills, you listen, you speak, you read, and then you write. Because reading and writing are complex skills which get associated with you only if you learn to listen and you learn to speak. When you are speaking and then writing again, you have to be syntactically correct. Your grammar has to be in place. Your verbs, the position of the verbs, the nouns, the adjectives will have to be in place. But unless and until you are comfortable and you shed your self-conscious, you will not be able to learn a language. So, doesn't matter, I tell my students, doesn't matter if you are wrong, speak the language. The teachers are there to correct you, but don't be conscious about speaking the language. Gradually, you will pick up. I'm sure, boys and girls, you have been told quite a number of times by your seniors or by your teachers, your professors, listen to the news every day. Why do they say so? A, you get aware of the current events. B, you get used to listening to the language. Once you start listening, to a certain extent, you will be able to imbibe that language in you. And you will gradually get the confidence to speak. So, at a very early age, we encourage the children. Mom, I want that kursi. Oh, so you want that chair? Of course, you will get that chair. Come, come, bring that chair. Ma'am, bathroom department. Oh, you want to go to the washroom? So I am talking right from the time they come to school. Gradually exposing yourselves to conversations with one another. Conversations not in the vernacular. If you have to learn to speak a language, engage in a conversation in that language with your peers. Not restrict yourself speaking the language only with your teachers. Your peers will learn from you. You will learn from your peers. Who are your peers? Your friends. You are constantly on the Facebook. You are constantly on the Insta making reels. Why not do it in the language that you have to learn? Okay? That's your practical application of whatever you want to learn. Important. Because ultimately, when you go to your higher studies, whether it be medical, whether it be whichever sphere, even hospitality management, which is very much in vogue today, and NSHM is a proud owner of this course of hospitality management, you will find they are expecting you to communicate in English. The basic manners. Sir, can I help you out? Please sit down. Yes. What can I do for you? What can I bring? The basics. You must be able to learn. So unless and until you shed that inhibition, you will never be able to learn the language. I have a young student who's very, very interested in learning the language, and I don't teach her. She's in class 6. You know what I do with her? She has, I ask her, what have you done in literature? So she tells me about the chapter. We discuss the chapter and I ask her, what are the key words that you have learned from that chapter? Now, using those key words, create a situation around yourself where you can apply those key words in the situation. And that is how the application of new words gets learned and taught and applied in a real life situation. Very important. Your new words that you learn should be made. There are some words which are your friends, some words which are your acquaintances, and some words which are strangers. You have to make the strangers your acquaintances, the acquaintances your friends. And that is how we learn a language. I was very worried when we got into an exchange program with a school in China. And our children are learning Chinese language in school. So they didn't have any problem adapting to the students of that school. However, we as heads were very, very worried. How are we going to communicate? How are we going to communicate with the head of that school? Because he doesn't speak English and I don't speak Chinese. My students told me that, don't worry. We teach you some key words. Ni hao, good morning. Sheshe, thank you. And you know, that gave us the confidence we learned from our students. Similarly, language is something with which you communicate your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts. Don't be scared of learning a language. Just like you have your mother tongue, you have another new language to learn. And since English is the lingua franca globally now, where you need to have a common language to communicate with everybody, learn the language for the love of it, learn the language to make new friends, use literature. How you can use literature? You know, we can use even storytelling to learn language. I can just lift up this trophy and ask you what are key words that you can remember or that you can think of looking at this. And then start a conversation with you. So, conversation, learning, speaking, listening to your teachers are very, very important in effective communication because you will learn to speak if you have the right vocabulary, the confidence, and the willingness to learn what you have to learn. When I was in class 9, I was very sure I would like to be a teacher. And even today, I have not given up teaching. I teach any level required, be it 5, be it 6, and 11 and 12. Now I'm teaching class 9 because they have started with Julius Caesar, which seems to be a very important and a difficult text for them. And how am I teaching Caesar? I am teaching them in the colloquial language that they will understand after going to the text of Shakespeare. That what is this citizen trying to communicate by saying this? He is trying to say this. Now, you can simplify, and as Professor Patil has said, using big words doesn't mean you know English. Keep yourself to being simple, keep yourself to communicating well, keep yourself to a situation which is within your grip. And very importantly, keep that confidence high and your effective communication will definitely and most definitely be learned through each and every exercise of your language and your thank you so much.
Thank you, Srintaji, for your wonderful contribution to the discussion today. I would like to highlight just 2 points that were raised by her. One, the use of the mother tongue. I am an advocate of the use of the mother tongue in a foreign language classroom or second language classroom because there are 2 things that are involved here. One is interference, the other one is intervention. There are quite a few similarities between Hindi on the one hand and English on the other. For example, let's take the sounds or there are so many other sounds. There are 44 sounds in English. And most of the sounds are very similar to the sounds of Hindi. We don't have to spend our energy and time and resources on teaching those sounds. But there are sounds which are different from Hindi sounds. Like, for example, our per, Hindi per is bilabial. My father was a farmer. My father was a farmer. But in English, we say it as my father was a farmer. My father was a farmer. So we need to spend time, energy, and resources on the sounds which are different. And we should not waste our energy and time and resources on the sounds which are similar. Because there is interference when there are different sounds. There is intervention when there are no differences, there are similarities. So intervention is very important. It's a positive term. And the other point that was discussed by Sunitaji was the priorities. What are our priorities? For example, she spoke about confidence and fluency and not worrying about accuracy or correctness. If you ask me, what are my objectives of teaching English in our country? I would say my first objective or my objectives of teaching English in our country as a second language are building confidence in the learner, enabling the learner to use the English language fluently, confidently, fluently, appropriately, and finally accurately. Accuracy takes a back seat because if you go on correcting mistakes made by the learner will feel demotivated and demoralized. Thank you very much, Sunitaji. Now, our next panelist is Dr. Krishnendu Sarkar. Sarkar. Oh, oh, thank you.
Right, sir. Thank you, Professor Patil. I had the proud privilege to hear you out in Durgapur on the fourth, I believe, third and fourth. Yes. Thank you, ma'am, once again. And as I said, that I will be borrowing some bits from your whatever you shared about the good things. And Professor Patil, your stories were like I was thinking that should go on and not stop. Now, let me deviate from this typical groove in which we are in, this sector, when we are trying to dissect and postmodern, since it is a conflict, it's a big word, right? So we have to sound a little bit more serious. I say no, let us little outside the field. Because see, I'm not per se from this field of language and communication. I'm an engineer. So let me try to engineer my way to contribute to this conference in some way. Now, taking cues from both Professor Basti on speaking skills and listening skills, and from Madam Sen, who just left the panel, I was left with this little story in my mind, little fictional story in my mind, which I can share with you, which in a way can conclude or bring out the gist or the essence of Professor Patil's mind and Professor Sen's mind. So I want you to take this journey with me. The journey that you are thinking, right? Sitting here, not mobile. You're making your mind mobile. Now take yourself to a place, maybe a hall, and then where you are told, listen, you are from India or whatever, which wherever country you belong, but now you have to address, you have to communicate. To whom? Listen, they are people from non-English, non-Hindi speaking regions of the world. And as an Indian, you're supposed to go and communicate with them. So they are people from China, from the Africa, from the Latin America, from the Europe, Spanish, Portuguese. And then, what are those questions which will come to your mind? How can I communicate because I don't know this language A or that language B or the language C of those countries? And not even in English. How unfair. Not even in English. But you have to perform this stuff. Formative assessment. You have to perform. But then you enter the room and just you peep it. And you are very happy. Why are you happy? Because you see, oh my God, they're infants. They're just babies. And you know exactly what is the language we need to communicate. That language is without you don't bother about your verbs, pronouns, nouns, adverbs, adjectives, and your pauses. You can just enter and make all of those babies happy. The African baby, the Chinese baby, or the baby from the Spain. And the language is what? Without any syntax. The language doesn't have a dictionary, come on. Yet it is so effective. And the African baby also smiling, the Chinese was also smiling, responding to the stimulus which you are generating through your body language and your work. And you win the formative assessment without knowing any of those languages your English and Hindi. But when you are little bit older, somebody has trained you into a kind of a language. See, listen, this is the language. I can't walk into as a diplomat and say, kulu, 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 kulu. No, it's G20 meet, man. There are expectations. There are expectations. You will be driven out from that room, summative assessment 0. Then after so long, you still learned nothing. Right? So forget about assessment. Language, I believe, is something, as I first of all told you, that please think, please use your mind. Mind is not tangible. Mind is basically a representation of your emotion. Right? So you learn to emote well when you are much more, in a good handshaking with your surroundings, your nature, the people around you, the immediate family. Reason why mother tongue is so very important. So you learn the nuances of emotion. Reason why literature, when you translate, there is a drop in emotions. Think about this in Hindi or in Bangla when you learned Ali Baba and Charlie's Show from the Arabian Nights. It was translated by a French. Again got translated in German and from German again in English and that English to Bengali or Hindi and the other. Still we are enjoying, even if there is a lot of loss with every translation. We have a gentleman here who probably can take us through this art of translation. But important thing for the millennials is today we are much more graphical. Today we visualize we do a lot of visualization. So you can carry a basket of emojis. Again, that is so very universal, right? We don't, it's not important that we learn a particular language to communicate with emojis. So we know emojis, and those are basically the emotions. The reason why ultimately you are supposed to communicate emotion, right? You're supposed to transmit the message, and there is emotion out there. So emojis, if we use it, or some kind of an graphics, some kind of an icon, again, we can be as effective as we are in the formative assessment. So we can walk into any room, be it babies or even adults. We can use those graphics, right? And we can still communicate and be a very effective communicator. But most important, let us have that kind of an, power of the feeling, the power of your thoughts, which can be embedded. Now, Professor Patil was given as a fine example on how, you can mispronounce or you can take an undue pause and the meaning can straight away shift from what was intended and what was understood. Now, we have to ensure, uh, sorry, I was referring your pauses when you said the present principle, that one. No, the present principle, is it? Yeah. So accent and pauses. Uh, I just lost the trail of exactly what I was trying to say here. But anyway, letting my thing start because I was really focusing on the power of your feelings and your power of your emotions. See, what is a language? Bhasha, Hindi. If I use it is basically to communicate that message. Even if my pronunciation is not good, even if my accent is not good. Now, if you have an APJ, Abul Kalam is no more. Probably he's not a very classical communicator. In all the metrics of your assessment of a good language and good communication, probably he might not pass even their summative assessment. But he's such an effective communicator because the power of the feelings, because if the feelings are powerful, it has its own inherent, kind of an energy to get transmitted from one point to another point and be understood rightly. Right? So, important thing is, my dear participants, my dear colleagues out here, my message is very simple. That we all have this latent ability to become universally effective in terms of our communication. We have to be mindful of our language. But remember, today we are also writing programming language. And just imagine this programming language can do so many wonderful things. You write in a kind of a syntax, which can be English, or it can even be a natural language. But the outputs you get, the results you get, right, is so very well understood by end users across the world. End users across the world. Imagine writing an operating system in Sanskrit. If you use Sanskrit as an operating system, and that operating system is not visible to you, not visible to the end user of Spain or of Germany or of non-speaking English speaking or not English speaking world. Yet, we can manipulate that language in such a way using computing that it is well understood by the end user. So what I'm trying to say is every language has its own ability and the potential to become universal. And thanks to this computational age or era in which we live, information technology, information society, AI, the chat GPTs will not understand your gulu 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 gulu. But let me tell you, if I can program that, if I am able to program that, I'm sure the chat GPT can also come up with some kind of similar responses as gulu 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 gulu, I also love you, something like that. So let us focus on our knowledge. Let us focus on exactly what is that kind of a knowledge we want to communicate or transmit or we want it to be understood. Be it any language, thanks to computing, thanks to the mnemonics which we use today, thanks to the graphics and the icons, I'm sure that we should be confident that yes, this is an age of 21st century, wherein language is not very important, the message is important. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Professor Sarkar, for your wonderful contribution to the proceedings of the day. I'd like to highlight just a couple of points from your talk. For example, you referred to, very briefly referred to body language, how we can use body language, and how we use body language. We should use body language to enhance the effectiveness of our communication. That's number one. You also referred to translation as a strategy. And Madam Sunita ji referred to the use of the mother tongue while teaching the other tongue. Now, translation is said to be similar to a man who is handsome but not faithful. That is, you are a handsome person, but you are not a faithful husband, faithful person. That is, you can't translate things from one language to another without a loss, or without a gain here, without a loss there. Let me give you one example and stop. In English, we have only one verb for wear. I wear glasses, I wear shirt, I wear a couple of trousers, a pair of trousers, I wear socks, I wear shoes. For everything, we use the same verb wear, W-E-A-R. But in Japanese, it depends on whether you're talking about wearing a tie or a shirt or a pair of socks, etc., etc. The verb will change. Like, for example, kiru, kimeru, akeru. So it depends on the choice of the verb, depends on what you're wearing and on which part of your body you're wearing that. So, but when you translate from Japanese to English, you use only one, right? And if you are not a good translator, then you will use only one Japanese verb for the verb wear. So there are limitations, but of course, translation is very important and we need to use it whenever it's necessary. Use it judiciously, wisely. Right? Thank you very much, sir. Now, next panelist is Ananya, Dr. Ananya.
Hi, everybody. First of all, allow me this opportunity to thank the NSHM family for having me. Also, I'd like to thank my co-panelists because I believe the session so far has been a constructive minefield of ideas, and I'm going to shamelessly borrow from all of them because I think it's going to help me a lot. Now, I like to keep the session interactive because I think it's sort of more engaging that way. That's what I know last well. Then I would like to talk about language as well as literature because I'm that particular field. First of all, maybe I'll put my experience as a researcher and a teacher. And I get to know you and you get to know me what kind of work I do. And I always use anecdotes in my class teaching. The language is a really fun thing. I am from the domain of literature, so I'm used to a certain kind of language perhaps. Now I'm married to an engineer, neuroscientist, corporate person, and I'm getting to learn a very different kind of language. Technical, street smart, and engineers in the classroom. Yeah. Okay. They probably speak a very different kind of language. The other day, it was initiative, right? So, Sunday, and I was having interactive sessions with my students, and I asked this question: what does language mean to you? What role does language play in your life? And again, no answer is the wrong answer. I just want to hear about experiences. And a person, she's a great lover of animals, like myself, and she gave me a really curious insight, which I started with this because there's a point that language can be essentially verbal and non-verbal. And this girl, she has a lot of cats, and she says, "Ma'am, even though my pets are fully grown, even when I talk to them, I essentially revert back to being talking. Ole wale and all that, right? So that is the kind of language probably pets. And I realized, yes, she is absolutely correct. No matter if pets are full grown, we still use a certain kind of diction in order to talk to our pets because they are forever babies for us, right? And that's what felt me into this idea that yes, definitely language is both verbal and verbal. In a post-colonial country like ours, English is less of a language, more of a status symbol, right? So especially in the urban areas. And obviously, it is not to make a statement that another language less English is higher, but a certain hierarchy has been created, unfortunately. This was 2017. I was in Berlin. I was sitting in a restaurant and I was sipping my coffee. This German lady comes and we start interacting. And she mentioned that, so you're from India and your English is obviously good. And I responded, yes, ma'am, it's the legacy of almost 200 years of colonialism. And she was probably a little taken aback because that's probably not the answer that she was expecting. But yes, certain kind of hierarchy has been created in this country. And when we were located in China, Japan, Korea, Italy, Latin American countries, probably wouldn't matter, but we are a British post-colonial country and English, like it or not, whether you call it necessity evil or whatsoever it is the language of communication, language of business. My co-panelists are much better sort of skilled to give you advice about how to pick up English as a language, so I'm not venturing into that arena. But coming back to the point that I was trying to make, so verbal and non-verbal language. The non-verbal, you have various kinds of forms of communication. Body language. Sir mentioned about emotion, so visual language. Even if you don't speak a particular language, you will understand emojis, you will understand traffic symbols, you will understand the universal signs for rest, right? And well, so benching from that, I would like to speak a bit about what I actually do. But before that, any manga anime fans in the class? Anybody? Manga anime fans? Okay, just one. All right, that's great. We're growing in numbers. Essentially, I'm a manga scholar. People who are not familiar with mangas are Japanese graphic narratives, comic books or graphic novels originating from the Japanese culture. So I was just talking about the Japanese language. And mangas have now become a cultural force of sort of like a soft power, right? I have in my PhD work on manga and globalization. So I'm pretty nice to be just working on solar punk, and she will also incorporate manga and anime. And then, so I was talking about hierarchy in language, that English and all the other Indian languages. Similarly, probably a certain kind of hierarchy also exists in English. That's perhaps a couple of years back, a couple of decades back, that study comics, popular literature, detective fiction, thrillers as a part of English literature curriculum was unthinkable. I had encountered, senior professors in my family, and to them, and they're not wrong. They come from a very different sort of thought process and ideas. To them, English literature classroom is about Shakespeare and Keats and Dryden, and they're absolutely right. But like language evolves, literature, syllabus, and curriculum also evolves, right? So I have been lucky as a part of my institution that I teach previous. So I actually teach postgraduate special lecture on comic and graphic narrative text and theory. Had a PPT prepared, but I don't think I can share that, so that's not a problem. And to study comics as a part of the curriculum was probably asking. But with new criticisms coming up in the 20th century, people like Raymond Williams, they sort of broke down the hierarchy between this so-called highbrow literature and popular literature. But then again, since my co-panelists mentioned that English does not always have to be bombastic. It has to be about something which is intelligible for everybody. Similar, probably a person who is not from literature background, not from a literature department, and is in a different vocation or profession. At the end of the day, coming back, the person probably needs to die to pick up a volume of Shakespeare. But that person might still pick up a volume of Tintin. That's essentially possible. And in this course, we actually study race, ethnicity, where we study the adventures of Tintin critically. We study gender, wherein we do manga, certain manga text, which is area of specialization. We study trauma and wars. We study Persepolis by Marjan Supravi, Mouse by Art Spiegelman. And finally, I think which is the most essential considering the present time, ecology, environment, and sustainability, where it is also study of humanity text and origin sense river of stories. If you're familiar with it, if you're not, pick up a copy. It's absolutely wonderful, a text to peruse through. So yeah, probably a couple of years back. Yeah, probably a couple of decades back, comic and graphic narratives, manga, as a serious academic pursuit was completely unthinkable. It was not serious. Comic has this miscommunication or misinterpretation attached with it that it's only meant for a juvenile audience. It's only meant for children. But probably in the recent times, with the kind of scholastic studies and the discourse, the serious academic discourses that are going on, you probably realize that comics as a form of communication, as a form of expression, as a form of literary venture, is much more attractive. So I'll keep my software, my piece, my presentation talk, and I'll end it here and pass on to the moderator. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anandaji, for yeah. Thank you very much, Anandaji, for your detailed contribution to the proceedings of the day. May we have your attention, please, for a moment? Yeah. If you have any questions or experiences, please keep them ready. I'd like to say just a couple of things in relation to what Anandaji has already said. You mentioned or you talked about the use of comics to teach English. In fact, we can teach English using even Lakshman's cartoon. I'll give you a simple example. Just an example. Lakshman has a cartoon like this. An interview is in progress. Candidates or applicants are waiting outside the interview hall, and the committee is sitting inside the hall. One candidate is invited into the hall, and the very first question, the very first thing that the interviewer says in the interview is, draw a chair and be comfortable. The candidate picks up a piece of chalk and draws the picture of a chair on the floor and goes up. Now, this candidate is obviously not selected because he doesn't know the actual meaning of the word draw. Draw water, draw money, draw attention, draw. So when you are teaching dictionary skills, for example, you can use an example of this, something like this, right? Or you can use, for example, cartoon where there is an old man and the old man says to a gathering, I'm not fasting, I'm starving. So you can illustrate the antonym fasting and starving using this cartoon. Or you can use, for example, the animation movie called Paperman by Walt Disney. There is no language. Showing guys, ask each student to come up with one sentence. For example, I see a young man in this picture. Short, simple sentences to begin with. And the next person says, he is waiting on the platform. And the next person says, perhaps he is going to office. So by the end of the class, you have about 60, 70 sentences. Right? So a whole gamut of things can be used in language, not just Shakespeare. Cartoons, comics, animation, film clips, etc. That's a brilliant one. Thank you very much. Our next panelist is Dr. Mangesh.
Respected co-panelists and of the participants of the day. Good afternoon to one. Um, First of all, I would like to highlight the fact that the topic chosen for this panel discussion and for this conference, it's apt to this current scenario. And then I really appreciate the efforts taken by Dr. Saujanya, trying to bring it into limelight, and giving the right kind of exposure to all participants here. Why are we here? To deliver and to use English language properly. What exactly we require? All of us, we debate and we discuss with our friends, and all of these things, it's just an informal content. And now, conferences like this, it just brings into limelight, and then it's expected that it forces us to the different varieties of it. We have another Professor Patil with us, and Dr. Ananya said, and then principal, school principal, a translator, and I come from a different background, from a college, but my specialization is curriculum design. I've been working on curriculum design since the history of 150 years of the University of Mumbai, Kolkata, University of Madras, and all four universities which were established the time of East India Company established here. So that's my specialty. So we are here to deliberate on the varieties of English available within us, around us, and all those would really help us to acquire the right form, right variety, and we can use it shine fearless. So that's our objective and aim of the conference. And at the same time, I would like to appreciate the director, your director, his involvement in this conference. Even at Durgapur, even here, he just shared his idea, his expertise. Although he comes from a different background, from engineering background, he's been contributing a lot to enhance the level of this knowledge. And I entered into this institute at this NSHM Knowledge Center. So, rightly, it gives you knowledge by giving exposure to such topics. Now, on to the topic. Sorry for taking up a time here. I just want you all to realize why we are here. First, why we are here. When it comes to regional language, I would like to touch upon this. When it comes to regional language, how do we learn our regional language? How do we pick up a regional language? When you try to learn any regional language. Okay. Saujanya ma'am from Telugu background, I come from Tamil background, and you Bengalis are here. So when we try to learn Bengali, and you try to learn the regional language. So when we try to learn regional language, you We are not scared to learn the language at all. Just like that, we try to put dialogues from our friends. How would you speaking with that? Or I like this. And what are the words used for this for a flavor, something or the other. Even like this, or something or the other, color or something. We just connect that with the region, with the culture, and we are not shy, and we are not we are not scared to acquire that form. When it comes to English language, we connect that with our personality. So we are come out of that shell. Because when you try to learn something, you have to come out of that shell. Come out of your fear zone. Come out of that zone, the closed zone. Just like Sir pointed out, you can start from a toddler, like a toddler you can start, and then come out of that zone. Immerse yourself into the context. Once you immerse yourself into the context without shyness or fear, you can learn it. And here, where there are no walls at all, you are not in the classroom. Come out of that classroom. You learn anything, you can master anything. Acquire language as a skill. To me, language is a skill, and the current focus is on skill. Acquire that as a skill. Just like learning to ride a bicycle, learning to ride, or learning to sing, dance, or like that. You come out of your that zone, acquire that, and solve all these varieties into a proper place, and you can master that. So with that, I just thank the management and Dr. Saujanya to have given me this wonderful opportunity to deliberate on a special topic like this, the need of the art. And I thank all the participants to listen to me patiently and to deliberate on that, come up with a good outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mandir, for your beautiful, wonderful ideas. Now, uh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you very much, Mandir, for your contribution to the proceedings. Now, suppose you want to become a champion swimmer, right? You want to become a champion swimmer, right? Yeah. Are you listening to us? Please? In the morning we spoke about the importance of listening skills. So, please listen. So you want to become a champion swimmer. There is a swimming pool in your town, in your city, and I'm a swimming coach, right? I take you to the swimming pool every day for 4 hours with 100 books on swimming. And we sit by the side of the swimming pool, and I read those books to you, and we discuss those ideas, included in the book. And we do this for a year. Will you become a champion swimmer? Obviously, no. No. You can't become a champion swimmer like that. That is what Dr. Mangi was saying. If you want to improve your English, please start talking in English, start speaking in English, and don't lose any opportunity. Don't miss any opportunity where you can contribute. Don't worry about accuracy. As I said, sometimes no confidence is number one, fluency is number two, appropriateness is number three, and accuracy is the last thing. Don't worry about accuracy. Keep trying. Keep trying.
So to this observation of yours, I have another observation. I'm sure the House will be able to relate this. Suppose the context is performance appraisal. And you're supposed to write in English. Right? So here is, say, a person A who writes, I was able to perform to the expectation of the roles assigned to me. Another person B writes in a much more, I can say, elegant way. Let me use that probably that person is using some bombastic words, technical words, right? And adding a lot of those business communication with a lot of those, targets, how it was achieved, the percentage terms and blah, blah, blah. Now my question to the house is, which communication as the appraiser, if you are the appraiser, you will find more effective? Most of you will tend to show your bias towards the latter because this person was able to detail it down and appeared that his communication was more effective because the present score was more. And the first person, the former one, gets a 4 mark. But if you see the result, actual output and the outcome, then he will come to figure it out, oh my God, this person had one line to say that probably he did his job well. But he got low appraisal marks. Yet his outputs and outcomes were more effective. But the latter person's communication was perceived to be more effective that he
Very much for the observation. Now, may I request Mr. Partha Pratim Das to say a few things?
Hello. I'm afraid I'm not a language part, so I think I'm a pure unchristian mistake for this conference. So, but anyway, thanks for this benchmarking conference, and special thanks to Oneshwari and others who have organized this wonderful meet. So I use the word meet. One of the most important skills, apart from core language learning skills, is thinking. We have lost the way to think properly. That's the problem with us. We don't, we don't think, we just act. So what this told us, uh, think. Try if you come back thinking differently. Don't just act. Think first. So time is a big thing, and paradoxical too. I come to you at a time when more than 350 trees close to my house would be cutting down to widen an international road. One of the busiest and most furious in the world is Zero. At this time, I remember a story by Ruskin Bond. I translated a few months back, titled Death of the Trees, where he writes, the peace and quiet of the absolute hillside disappeared forever one winter. The powers that decided to build another new road into the mountains and the PWD saw fit to take it right past the cottage, about 6 feet from the large window which had overlooked the forest. Quite an experience for both of us. Now come back to where I have been. Why do the trees cut down? They are weak, voiceless, cannot challenge ruthless humans. So they are easier targets to be reduced to victims of what we call urbanization, more accurately, our extricating comfort and some sense of security. So that we can use more cars and those cars can put more pollutants into environment. We cannot stop growing cars, so we might stop growing trees. That's it. Just like I don't have potent medicine, so I kill the patient. Excellent solution and the important one to make our beloved owl the most perfect dead ground. Critics raise their voice, I think big time, obviously. Isn't it the silent admission of our defeat? We know very well that we are dying, or we may face the worst catastrophic replacement on this earth, but we act as if we know nothing about that inevitable consequence, or we have no responsibility for or no connection with the most dangerous outcome. This is the obvious paradox that Zizek is drawn out as the deserve of psychoanalysis. But before we proceed any further, given the serious atmosphere, we have to think about why it is difficult for ordinary people to take climate change seriously when ecology or ecosystem is more and more taking the role of a conservative ideology, to some extent religion, in the outburst of scientific breakthroughs. If possible, don't take me seriously. I came to you not as a scholar and not for certain, even not to read out any paper. This is not an article at all, but I came to you as a very ordinary man who can think who can think differently, like every ordinary man can do. No one gives a damn to, obviously, and as a fellow human, if I deserve to be, who often lives in distress, often in indifference, and among friends, spending time finding solutions, sometimes absolutely worthless, because solutions without having enough power to be executed uniformly are destined to be trapped outside any conference room. We have problems much more than we need. We have solutions much less than we expect. What does it mean to be environmentally conscious? Being environmentally conscious means that you are conscious of the effect that you and your actions have on the environment, and you actively go the extra mile to make sure that your impact is minimized. It is a concept that has gained increasing attention as the effects of climate change become more apparent. It encompasses a range of attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors related to environmental sustainability. At its core, eco-consciousness, or being environmentally conscious, reflects a deep understanding of the interconnectedness between humans and the natural world and the need to protect and preserve it for future generations. This applies to anything you do, whether it is commuting to work, or school or college, or selling or buying bottled water in the place of plastics, choking our planet, and in the long run, our tragedies. I know these are all too weighty to carry forward, but some sweet and effective in a well-decorated hall. It is very happy to share my anxiety with hundreds of others, but we give a damn to the environment as it seems a burden to us. When I see a tree being cut down, what change comes to my mind? When I throw plastic or garbage into a drain, what am I thinking? But there's a problem. What if eco consciousness is despised, challenged, and restricted as the enemy of social progress? It goes against the will of majority and becomes difficult to accept one's guilt of living the wrong life. So you may ask, who the hell are you to get that same cross of some modern ethics? What's wrong with being wrong anyway, since we have every right to protect our choice? Even if we choose to die, okay, my death, my wish. Thanks. One thing to be noted here, to be right or to be wrong is absolutely a subjective choice. So it cannot be any absolute obligation. Make one thing clear, we are passive in our choice, oppressive discriminators to a great extent. We tend to like what others like as long as it aligns with our own preference. But remember, in every course of your life, subjective choices are socially determined. Your choices have been determined even before you were born or your parents planned to make. So we must think what facilitates us to make preferences. How do we know what we like to prefer? Do we know exactly what we want? Or I might say we are manipulated socially, politically, culturally to make a choice. You know, preference is not natural. How do we construct our preferences? In psychology, economics, and philosophy, preference is a technical term usually used in relation to choosing between alternatives. Psychologists, however, typically use the term preference to denote a latent tendency to consider something desirable or undesirable. Preference is always constructive. Most of the evidence that preferences are, constructed is based on the observation that preferences change as a function of task measurement and choice environment. Preferences are always context sensitive. So it is your turn to ask yourself, do we want to die? No, we do not. But why do we act like we don't know anything about the traits, or we are patterned to witness our day? Or we fail to live up our own best experience when it comes to challenging the ecosystem norms and practices of capitalist culture in the case of acute ecological catastrophe or crisis. As again, this observes in its nature and its discontents, can easily turn ecology into a new field of capitalist investment and competition. So no doubt Starbucks Stadium on that. As capitalism works in precise social conditions, objectified mechanisms of markets' invisible hand, it guarantees that it is working for common good. Instances are there when international chains often claim that their profit will reach the distant part of Botswana, feeding the poor hunger victims, or you are, and you are now very happy, pleased, satisfied, often proud to be humble part of the worldwide charity you have little idea about. All right, you know well that your responses to the environment are responsible for your slow catastrophe. So come back to where I have been arguing. My question is eco-consciousness the enemy of social progress? We need highways, so we got trees. We need apartments, so we got trees. We need cities, so we got trees. Basically, we need to live, so we got trees, and so on and so on. Sometimes we may challenge the notion that we need trees or trees may save us. It sounds stupid, but think a while. Didn't you ever want some dumb trees replaced by your survival need? But we are doing what ecologists call ecocide, often interpreted as a fifth international crime, defined as the intensive systemic destruction of the land base and living communities that compose the Earth biosphere. We are biological agents, all of us. We should not deny our ability. Why do we choose the systemic violence that is inherent in the social conditions of the global capital? There's a beautiful yet complex traumatic reference that I found in Smith's article from victims to survivors struggling to live eco-consciously in an eco-safe culture. A nice parallel from Daniel Quinn, Uru and Tower. The ancient explorer Uru comes across a tower that's tall beyond compare. Its residents live in a penthouse at speed. Each day on, one telling, the residents set off one or two explosions on lower floors. None of these explosions is strong enough to break down the tower, but Uru informed the residents every single blow out necessarily reduces the integrity of the entire structure, and eventually all the weaknesses you have introduced must combine dynamically to bring about its downfall. We should not be afraid to convey the message that we are consuming our mother or part by part. Ecology becomes a new habit to the people living in the first-phase globalized society. Most of us pose to be eco-traumatic or what's happening there. But there is a ridiculous gap between what we talk about and what we act, or how we act personally. Certainly no immediate effect. Even I don't believe in any immediate consequence. It's not like tomorrow Kolkata action that one will be wood by the sea, or that the book will turn into a desert next year because 350 trees are being cut down. But it acts like in no slow poisoning. We are just in a state of paralysis, hopelessness, and act hypnotically out of desperation. We have created a make-believe state, a preferred oblivion made of false ideology, where we are increasingly trying to get rid of trauma-inducing subjects like our nearing catastrophe, the end of the world, and so on and so on, and pursuing consciously or unconsciously in an invisibly exploiting capitalist process that ultimately makes us sincere and callous at the same time to the devastating projects. There is no way to reestablish the balance. Nature is complex, nothing is culture, and culture is nature. Or again, what did they say? Nature is perceived as a cultural construct. Now, if you carefully think, most of you know this well. The human mind is shaped by culture and becomes a part of that culture. I think every culture is an incredible apparatus of the enslavement process. Every culture limits your freedom or restricts you to act freely. consciously or unconsciously, you feel a deep obligation to the culture that breeds you, makes you identity. Now, if the culture becomes a vehicle of the fast-paced global economy, then we are engaged in a particular pattern set by the economy itself. We are nonetheless forced to act, behave, or think the way determined by the capitalist culture we are part of. So if you ask, how do we have the potential to be a survivor? We have to survive. Okay. I say there's no such immediate magical way to escape the unprecedented disaster. Every disaster is a part of nature. Rather, we have to learn how to live with the anxiety, oppression, violence that we cannot get rid of, and how to survive the next imminent battle. But on a very positive note, at least we can try to make our mother earth a little bit healthier from our own subjective position so that our end will not be as miserable as we think. I know this is no wonder. The next impossible desire I still possess in the deepest corner of my mind. Things are really getting worse. But I nonetheless should encourage you, the younger generation sitting calmly and tolerating me and tolerating my deepest thoughts, obviously, which are orchestrated, alluding, repetitious to some extent, I admit, just to take a little risk not to hurt this beautiful art. We should not exploit the only chance we have been given to exploit, so that we always have a chance left to be exploited next time. Please be more careful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Das. Thank you very much, Mr. Das, for your wonderful ideas on ecology and environment and preservation of ecology and so on and so forth. In this context, I'd like to take a minute that there are two types of ecology. One is mental ecology, and the other one is physical ecology. When you want to study physical ecology, for example, or environment for the matter, you are reminded of John Keats's Ode to Nightingale and Ode to Autumn, and of course, Ancient Mariner by F.C. Coleridge, because he gives the algebra for no reason. And Egdon Heath, for example, plays a very significant role in powers of crime. And I give you the example of the three daughters to King Lear. The first two daughters, Congress and Reagan, they think that their love will not be divided between their husbands and their dad. Right? But they are lions. They are compulsive lions. Right? On the other hand, the sincere daughter Cordelia says that when she gets married, her love, of course, will be divided between the father and the husband. Right? So that's a part of mental ecology. We can do it from different angles. We can talk about ecology from different perspectives. Thank you very much for the contribution. Now, I request Dr. Saujanya to say something.
Take about a few minutes to bring us back to the topic which we're talking about. We're specifically talking about emerging trends in using language and literature in the millennial classroom to foster effective communication. The buzzword has been categorically on the millennial communication and these emerging trends. Now, as we have a distinguished panel here, spanned from administrators to professors to book translators to completely people who've been grappling with language and literature and curriculum development and so on. To be an effective communicator, yes, listening is important. We need to have the right kind of attitude to address in the classroom. But again, the question comes back, the kind of text and content we can use in the classroom. Now, I find it very archaic. I might be sounding really wrong when I say this. I may not be accepted by the Puritans of the language and literature world of today. Because when I go into a millennial classroom, who tell me that, ma'am, Facebook is for aunties and uncles. We live in the world of Instagram. We have revolutionized the way you eat, talk, and behave. So if I have to cater to them, I will have to go and look for content which would directly sensitize them and also be very relevant to the classroom. So my Shakespeare, however relevant would be in the classroom, has to be rephrased and repacked in a different manner. We were talking about one buzzing area which everyone is talking about, eco-fiction and eco-literature. When I studied The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, and we had taken months together to understand that, my professors told me that that's going to be something which is relevant throughout your life. And we noticed when our shift and emphasis in our literature is moving towards eco-literature, right? I guess it still stands relevant because the millennials of today are a bunch of kids who are sensitive to all the social issues. They're very receptive to the causes of the world. And anything which brings them and draws their attention in the classroom works wonders. So, in the process of the last 2 days of our conference, and the third day here, we take back some important understandings and very well put by, Ruskin Bond was someone who we all studied. I think most of the kids studied in the class. Othello, King Lear, all of us studied. But my question always remained, we had learned all the textbooks, but why is it that we cannot articulate in the classroom? Why is it that we cannot even clear an interview? So how do we use these texts in a very nice manner for making it very understandable for our millennial students? So one of the questions one of the management students asked during the conference on the 4th in the report was, I'm not interested so much in literature. I don't get a chance to read so much. So what is that I want? Do we bring in business fiction, which is a great emerging area, into the classroom? Are we going to look at getting scientific communication and areas which are based on it into the classroom? My IT students would switch off if I get back the cliched creative stuff, though they would write. But if I get them to understand something beyond that technical communication, does it work? And what are the texts which would support in all of these areas? And I leave it to the house to deliver it to a large extent on it. I think we did, and we have almost been doing it for the last 1 hour. And Professor Patil has been my teacher, and Dr. Mangai has been someone who has been the ELTAI national convener, who's been having all these deliberations throughout. So I guess it is for us to still understand, because the papers which we have received so far made us understand that yes, there is necessity for having new texts, especially in the young adults. I would not talk specifically about schools, but yes, when you move into the classroom, that's where our Center for Language and Communication and the team in both the campuses has been trying to work on. How do we get, if I bring in songs into the classroom, if I go back to get John Lennon into the classroom, it may not actually be relevant. But if I get Miley Cyrus, if I bring in the latest song of Flowers, that would be very relevant. I can get into them to do a reel of, when we have something called a video resume they do in the classroom. So I ask them to do a reel using one of the texts. They are very, very effective and efficient in their language learning process. I think we have a way to go. I mean, we really have a lot more of deliberations before we come back to it. So I would really like to share that with the House once we are done with the compilation of the book, so that you would understand that, what was it these 3 days, many youngsters have really felt about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saujanya for your very insightful and valuable comments. Before we proceed to take questions and offer answers to those questions, I'd like to answer your question. And the question is very significant. Saujanya said, we read and study and teach literature. But why is it that we can't communicate effectively? Why is it that we are very poor communicators? We, in the sense, the learner, the student. My simple answer on the basis of my own observation and experience as a teacher and teacher trainer in India and abroad is very simple. My conclusion may not be very palatable to you. And I'm not excluding myself from the conclusion. I'm a part of the conclusion. I'm a part of the community. My observation is teachers are tormentors. and the students are the tormented. And this tormentor, the teacher has two tools of torture in their hand. Text and test. We use the text, to expose the ignorance of the learner and not to test how much the learner knows. So we should be mentors and not tormentors. And we should not torture our learners. You know, the moment the teacher enters the class, he or she says something which is very damaging, right? And we in fact suffocate their creativity, destroy their, devastate their creativity and critical thinking. The teacher enters the class and says, I'm going to teach a poem today. Don't make noise. Teaching poetry is very difficult. Now, when the teacher says this, obviously the learner will avoid it and say, my teacher has been teaching literature for so many years, and even he or she says that teaching poetry is difficult. I was born only a few years ago. How can I understand poetry? And the mind of the learner has blown. So we don't know how much damage we cause every day. We should be recording our own sessions, our own lessons, and listening to and watching. You know, we should be watching our own sessions, listening to what we have done in those sessions. Thank you very much. Now the session is open. Yeah.
Add on to that, whatever you were saying. Again, people might not agree with me, but when it comes to literature academia, perhaps humanities academia, we enter this folly of, I don't know, using some kind of, yes, academic writing and language is important, but we enter this folly of using a very, I don't know, elitist, alienating, jargonistic language, which is not accessible to everybody. And naturally, there is a break in communication, which is inevitable, which almost always happens. So that's what I want to add.
Please feel free to raise your question. Because a workshop or a seminar or a conference without question cannot be complete. But question answer session is more enlightening. Yes. Thank you everyone for this enlightening session. My name is Gautam Gudam, and my question is that we all have mentioned in some kind of a way that we have put English to a certain kind of a pedestal. And English is not just a skill that we need to learn, or like a lot of students, a lot of learners, it is related to their status quo. They are very nervous, they are very panicked when they try to speak English in the class. I system in the university, and they take communicating English classes, and uh, I take classes of allied health and science, and they are most of the students, like most of the students in my class have come from good position, good bottom, and they are mostly taught in the like vernacular medium, the Bengali medium. One of the students are from CBS or ICS. So when they try to speak, there is a certain kind of like consciousness there that I will not be able to speak in that, and I am making mistakes. So I find that there is a sense of like when and we are teaching that you need to speak in English. I am here to teach you communicate in English. You need to communicate in English. So again, I'm forcing them to learn something. So my question to all of you is probably that is it the time has come that whenever we are trying to teach ELP in some of like be communicating English or simple language, the first class should be decolonizing the mind. Like be it Rajarao, be it Enbugi, be it anyone teach them that it's just a skill. If you don't, I don't know computer, I don't know computer like other languages that are there, C++ or something, but I don't feel that I lack anything. But student, a learner who does not know English, it's a language, but they feel that they lack something. They are not complete until and unless they learn that language. So I always try to like the first class I take, I say, okay, look, the scholars are not there. You probably would not believe me because probably you are seeing that I am not as much a scholar as they are, but okay. So that's the thing. Thank you. Very briefly address your question. There are several misconceptions that prevail in English language speaking scenarios. For example, you talked about decolonizing. You talked about decolonizing our mind. Even today, many teachers and parents and administrators and the learners think that English is not cow milk. English is not buffalo milk. English is tiger's milk. It's not everyone's cup of tea. So it's a privilege that that is ascribed to people who study in English medium schools. I told you I never went to an English medium school. Till my second year BA class, everything was in Marathi. Right? But I think my English is okay. So this myth has to be shattered. And who has created this myth? Teachers who teach in English medium school, and the principal, and the administrators, and the parents. The parents think, my, my son goes to an English medium school. So what? So what? English is just another language. Just another language. So I think the teachers, we should, I would like to request the honorable principal. Uh, Okay. But anyway, all of us as teachers need to shatter the myth that English is just another language. It is not superior to Hindi or Bangla or Marathi. Right? We should start doing this. But it's very initiative. People look down upon Marathi and Bengali medium schools, and they think they are a special species sent from heaven. So I think that's very important. We need to decolonize one.
I want to add to what the Professor Patrick has said. And to your, it was not a question, it was kind of your observation. See, language, the very purpose of the language is so that we are able to make this animal called human more civil. Now, the purpose of now language has shifted from that, from making this human civil to making this human competitive. When I gave you this appraisal context, now somebody who got the most votes as the effective communicator probably shows that language has become is turning people to be provoking people to be more competitive, winning over others. So it is basically the faith which becomes the new real. Means what? Somebody who has performed actually and truthfully wrote one statement was not seen to be an effective communicator. And that was not civil because now language has placed all of us into this competitive zone. Think about marketing communication. Oh my God. They promise you the moon and the Mars and the sun and whatnot, and they deliver you so little. But we, the buyers, so language is basically creating this perception. And the reason why, even in the first, in the Durgapur, I think people like us, we were basically banking more on the mother tongue. But anyway, because the first thing is, the first preamble is, let us all be civil. And I'm sure that today language has taken us to a kind of a zone where probably we are countering in an adverse way this very civility cause of what the language is meant to be, and be it mother language or any language. So that should be our first priority, that we are civil in a civil society. And that's the reason why language has played an important instrumental role in civilization. But with this competition, the language which is now there for competition will be a programming language or with the language of English. So we need to really deliberate in platforms like this that how we can come back to the civility.
Let me just add to respond to this gentleman's observation. I would just like to share my experience that before I joined Millennials, which is my on family, I worked for a year, a little more than a year in tech engineering. So they're in Department of English more. And we have personal communication. But aside that, I was a mentor for a freshers batch of almost more than 100 students of computer engineering. So these are young minds fresh out of school, brilliant minds talking about innovation, startup, business, things I was not honestly familiar with. And we had certain problems in communication. And I told them what I essentially shared probably a couple minutes back during my presentation. That do people in Japan, China, Korea, Italy, Spain care about it? They don't. So should you not? Yes, you need to stay up. And please don't care if people make fun of you or laugh at you. Please just get speaking because practice will essentially give you that skill. And I believe that in the classroom, it is the teachers or the educators' responsibility, I think, to facilitate a safe environment wherein, if there is some kind of peer bullying or peer pressure that is going on, making people uncomfortable or conscious that they are not probably speaking in the required manner, I think it is the teacher's responsibility to own such an environment, a safe space, so that every voice is heard. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Sir, actually, it is not a question, but again, an observation, which I keep saying in class also, and which was validated when I attended the 3-day program, is that English is like that one, a coffee mark in your white shirt that you are wearing. And the entire day you are bothered that somebody might notice and comment on it. But at the end of the day, when you go back home, you see that nobody even noticed. Nobody even spoke about it. So the problem is here. We have to understand that if you want to become Mahendra Singh Dhoni, you'll have to get into the field and play. You can't just stand outside and criticize, analyze. I'm not saying you'll not become anything. You'll become Harsha Gokhale, but you'll not get your aim of becoming Dhoni there. So that's why this language is something that has to be first. It is, as the training module also says, that first is attitude. Once you get your attitude correct, that yes, I will speak no matter what, skills will fall in place and you will get the knowledge. So I think that ask factor is very important in this communication skills also. So that's what I realized when, when Parthopati sir said, you said, all of you are not from English medium background. Maybe I have studied in an English medium school. But if today I'm listening to you, I don't rate myself more than 6 when I listen to you because you're 11. So the thing is, which time it is not about your background, what you did, nobody remembers. Like when we were in 10th, 11th, 12th, everybody used to say, इसमें अच्छा नहीं हुआ तो बस career तो गया. I was a very average student. मेरा नहीं गया था. So the thing is, it's always about, yeah. So it's always about time and how you stand up and go for it. So I think it is time that we get.
My job as thank you. So my job as the moderator of this kind of discussion is to say a big thank you to you because without participants, these celebrations have no point. So thank you so much for participating, not only participating, raising very important questions and offering very significant comments. Thank you so much, and I thank my panelists, Professor Sarkar, Professor Mange, Professor Sunita ji, and Mr. Parker, Patel, and of course, Ananya Sahaji. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you, panelists, for such an enriching discussion. Now we will move on to the next segment, that is certificate distribution. So, as ma'am already mentioned, that we have received around 102 presentations or papers from students across India, and for each track, our session chairs have selected a few papers to be awarded as the best paper. So, I would like to call out the names, and I request Lenin Patil sir and Dr. Manga to felicitate the award winners. First is it's a great privilege to actually felicitate Dr. Shamba Chakraborty and Dr. Shukriyo Visas, and they are senior faculty members of NSHM Business School. So,
So this way, sir. Sir, can you please face this way?
next is Advita Karan and Vipasha Sharma. The title of the paper is Mass Sterilization, and they are the students of BSc Psychology from NSHM Kolkata.
Just face here. One more.
Next, we have Manish Mahapatra from BSc Psychology, NSHM Kolkata. The title of his paper was The Repetition of Eco-Catastrophe. Next, we have Swarnendu Das from Sister Nivedita University, Tam. The title of the paper is Reading and Indian Eco-Speculative Fiction in the Language Classroom. Moving on to the certificate of appreciation, we have Pritisha Haldar from Optometry. The title of the paper is Effective Communication Being a Milestone to a Successful Career in 21st Century.
Yeah, this is
Along with her, Ankit Datta, Optometry student. Finally, we have Oishiki Bandyopadhyay from St. Xavier's University. The title of her paper is Green Shades of Literature.
Being paid with very reason for finding out something. Being curious.
Thank you, Pakistan Mangana. I would like to call Dr. Saujanya Puri to give the vote of thanks.
it is immense pleasure and feels nice that